I'm not a philosopher, but I think that desire is probably a mixed bag of things. I think you have to have like great opposition in your life in order to fuel the need to improve. I feel like there's just such a beautiful dance between a husband and wife and the work variable. When you have the perspective to step back and realize that life is really good at distracting you from what's really important. Good or bad, but imagine the things you could talk about if you live in Rome for a year, or if you live in Greece for a year, or you live in Canada for a year. Like, imagine the things as a husband and wife, how you would grow as a couple, having to experience different hardships and different cultures within this world. It would be really cool.
And we're rolling.
Sweet.
Dr. Ben.
Hey, Tiger. How you doing?
It's awesome to be back.
Good to have you here.
It's one of those feelings when I go, when I came back, and it's like probably somebody new at the front desk that met me. But then she's like, "Are you Tiger?" And I can tell you from all the offices that I visited, it's not common for someone in the front to greet you. And it just tells me that you have systems in place and you have the right people in place, that somebody probably told her that Tiger is going to be here. And when somebody shows up with a box of coffee, that's probably Tiger.
Yeah. I mean, you're kind of a superstar, so that might not be as much to do with systems as it does to who you are. But, I think we're trying to make it so it runs the way that we want it to run, so patients feel comfortable.
That's amazing. Yeah. I'm curious how, last time I was here, probably like 2019, 2020.
Yeah.
2019, how I don't want to use the word bad, but like how difficult was the 2020 for you in 21?
I think the most difficult part for me was just managing the what ifs. How are we going to handle things? Every dentist that I know handled the shutdown different. We were down for 2 months, and prior to that happening, we weren't quite sure what we were going to do with our team. So the hardest part for us is just knowing, or trying to predict what was going to happen. We were blessed as far as being able to keep team members and to keep their conversations the way they were when we were out, and I think because of that, most of them stayed. But more so than that, once the unknown was more clear, it was kind of fun. Like, it was fun to see what we could do in difficult times and see what our teams could do. And so I think that was the hardest part during the whole COVID shutdown. Afterwards, it's dealing with all the stuff that comes afterwards.
Right.
It seems like our schedules are more up and down right now. As news of things comes out, there's more of an ebb and flow at much higher and lower degrees than there was before. But
interesting.
As far as the work, I'm a dentist, so it stays the same, really. It doesn't change. It's just a matter of how many people are coming in, how many people are worried about what's happening in the external world,
Mm-hmm. You always have this, the right approach to work-life balance, I think. Mm-hmm. And then when that happened, what was the first week like for you? Like, when you didn't have to go to the office? You probably still came here, but I don't know, or waking up and...
So it's funny, we were on vacation. It was spring break for us, and so I was with my family on vacation, and we shut the office down about a week before we were required to, just because there was a lot of stuff coming out, and the team was scared, and so we just didn't feel like it was worth putting them through their perceived fear. And so we stayed on vacation for another week because we were there, and so we're like, well, we'll just stay there. And then when we got home, it was a weird feeling to be able to wake up in the morning and not need to go to work. Like, I like vacations, but after about a week or so, I get a little antsy. I want to do something, and so I did a lot of work from home. Worked on a lot of the the business side of it versus the patient side, and marketing stuff and things like that. But time's there to fill, and so I filled it with things that I thought was productive, and I think that helped us through the first year post-COVID. I don't know if that's not a phrase, but first year post 2020, that I'm sure helped us through some of those things. But once it was done, it was just an opportunity.
Couldn't wait to get back.
I couldn't wait to get back.
Yeah,
actually,
right.
Like when we opened up, the day we opened up, I was like a little kid in the candy store. I was really excited to get back, and we did see emergency patients a couple times a week, but because there was 5 of us dentists that were covering for each other, it was once a week I was in, and so and that work was, just emergency type stuff. It wasn't the super high fulfilling for the most part.
How was it coming back? I always try to think about it. We have a remote team, right?
Yeah.
And the first time I went overseas and I met my team in person, it was so awkward, because like you're on a video call every day.
Yeah.
You talk to you know them very well. A lot of times you would know a lot about the person.
Yeah.
But when you meet the first time face to face, you're like, are we gonna hug or like are we just high five? Like, what are we doing? Like, so,
Yeah.
and I feel it probably was a little bit similar after you came back in 2 months. Like, how was it?
Yeah, I mean, it was. It felt just like coming back after summer break when you were in school. You're out for a couple months, and when you see them again, it's like, there's a great feeling of almost like family that you come back. In our field, we're very close all the time, and so to have the time off and get back, it was like it took a couple days for us to catch up on what was happening in their lives. As far as where the kids were, we knew what they were doing. Most of them were just at home, enjoying their families and stuff like that. But it definitely felt like coming back from summer break. And you see your friends, and you're like, oh, it's great to see you, even though we had done some conference calls throughout COVID that kept us together. But it wasn't necessarily the close contact that we were used to.
That's amazing. What was one of the things that you were working on? You said that you worked on the business.
Yeah.
What was like 1 or 2 things that you really had time to think through and put a plan together, and then you came back and you executed?
Well, for me, it was where I wanted to go with my clinical goals. We had, I had been involved in a number of procedures that are kind of full mouth implants and restorations and all-in-4 type procedures, and I really enjoyed it. And so I spent a lot of time doing some courses that refined my knowledge in that, and then more importantly, set a path to where that's really all I'm going to move. At the point that I decided it was where I wanted to move to, which means dropping most of the other stuff that I do as a dentist and allowing the dentists that work for me, who are fantastic, to fill in the void of what I was doing. And there's some trepidation there because there's always this most of the patients that I've seen up to this point didn't need full mouth extractions and implants. And so I worked a lot on the marketing part of it, worked a lot on the scheduling part of it and what I would do and where I'd go. And then the last year has been trying to implement that. And it's not without its ups and downs,
Right.
But it does allow me to know where I'm trying to go. And so no matter what, I can redirect if I feel like I'm off course. And that all kind of started throughout the COVID time that I had to think and work on where I really wanted to be when I was 60 years old as a dentist,
Right. Which is probably another 30 years away from.
I wish.
Right.
No. 18 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
By the way, none of you guys have any signs of COVID times.
Thank you. Like I said, I think it's all a testament to how the team functions, how they interact, and how they thrive. I think they all want to feel like they're progressing, and if we can give them an opportunity to feel like they're in a company that they can progress, then they do well.
That's awesome.
If they don't, then they don't stick around.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Did it help? I know that you spent a lot of time on culture, like just being in the staff room and the signs and everything. How much do you think during COVID the culture played the role in keeping the team together?
I think culture is like this key word that all companies want to say they're great at. But I don't think culture is really seen until it's put up against the wall.
Which was a great
I think,
wall.
Yeah, I think COVID was one of those times where, we want to build this culture of family. We want to build this culture of security. We're always a culture of fun. Like, fun is a big part of who I want everyone to be. And during COVID, I think it gave our company the opportunity to show what culture it really had. You can say all you want that the people you work with are like family, but until you step up to the plate as a business and say, hey, don't worry, we got you covered. We'll pay we'll pay your salary like you were working for the next 2 months or more, depending on how long this goes. Until you can do that, then they don't really see what type of culture you have.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was an opportunity to kind of put my money where my mouth was. And so the culture part of it, of really being like family, became legit because they gave me an opportunity to not just talk, but to do something about it. And
Yeah.
it wasn't without fear. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
Like we had a certain amount. We knew what we ran through each month, and we knew what that number would be. And we were like, okay, after a few months, that's going to be interesting.
Right.
And we had the fear, but we were extraordinarily blessed because of it, I think. And I think the team we have now is amazing. And most of those team members are team members that were here with us during the COVID time.
Yeah, that's one of my fears when I go back to offices now.
Yeah.
It's like, I remember Meghan, I remember Allison, right? So like, these are great people on your team. And sometimes when I go back, I'm like, I have to remember the names, right? Let's start there.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, all right, cool, I remember the names. But then sometimes the people are not there.
Yeah.
And again, by no means I'm trying to say like somebody didn't have the leadership skills. Or it could be any circumstances. But I do feel that COVID was a big leadership test for a lot of dentists.
Yeah, I agree. And even post-COVID, there was a good period there where it seemed like stealing employees from other dental offices was a normal thing in our industry. We had a lot of offices reach out to team members directly, and offer them, a lot more than what they were currently getting paid. And luckily, I figured that was going to be a phase and that would pass just like everything else does. And luckily, the key members of our team, we were able to not have issues with them leaving. But that obviously posed some issues. But that's the biggest thing, is seeing what happens to your team after your culture is revealed. Like, are they going to stay or are they going to go? And the ones that left after we really showed who we were, it's a blessing they left, because if they're not part of that, don't want to be part of it, then we don't really want them here anyways. And so it's been great, honestly.
That's awesome. And did you promote? And I promise we're going to get off the subject. It's just so interesting to me. While not necessarily the time that you guys were shut down, but while this whole COVID period, I know you're healthy. I know you're into sports and stuff.
Yeah.
Were you promoting that with your team?
Absolutely. I think we did. We've done a lot of challenges that focus on better eating and exercise. And then a lot of the trips that we're doing are also focused on that. During 2020, we took a trip to Hawaii we took our whole team. It was interesting because everything shut down. And then in May or June, it opened back up again. And then we had planned this trip to Hawaii, I think in July. And then everything kind of shut down again. And then it opened up again it shut down right after we got back from Hawaii with our team. But we went there for the specific purpose of doing this hike that was there. And to have fun, of course, as a team. And so I think, if they're healthier at work, if they're more financially healthy at work, then they'll be better team members. And so a lot of the things we do are revolved around that, challenges of, we don't say weight loss, challenges of eating better or challenge of getting ready. We have a trip that we're going to Zion's National Park in Utah, and
that's amazing,
in September, where there's a 18-mile hike that we're doing. Wow. And so the teams are getting ready for that. And
Is that cool for you as a
I mean,
the owner of this business?
For two reasons. It's awesome. One, because I love doing it, and so
Right.
like going and doing that as part of what I consider my job is amazing because it's fun to do that, and the teams are fun to have, and then two, seeing them realize there's a difference. The difference between going to a job and just going to work and clocking in, clocking out, and going home versus a job that hopefully we allow them opportunities to progress in all aspects of their life.
That's interesting. You mentioned, or I was talking to Allison, CareStack. You moved to the new platform.
Yeah.
Was it something that you were thinking before, or is it something that you took advantage during that time that you could do that, or in what pushed you to go in that direction? Just curious, because it's a big move for offices to change the practice management software.
I have this insatiable desire to find the most efficient way of doing something. It drives my wife crazy because I'll look at something and be like, no, that can be done better this way or this way. And sometimes I'm wrong and sometimes I'm right. And, the few times that I'm right feed all the times that that make me keep trying to do it. And with our old software system, it wasn't that it wasn't working. It's just that it didn't seem like that was the best way. It didn't seem like that was the easiest way. I love lots of books on having good systems in play that allow a company to grow, not being held back from your systems. And a lot of the systems we had under our old software were difficult to train because it took weeks and weeks for our new team members to catch on. Board. And in my idea, technology and software should be designed so that it makes things easier, not harder. And it should be intuitive. And I felt like, our old system just wasn't, I knew it very well, and the people who had been here a long time knew it very well. And so their desire to leave it was an obstacle because once you know something, you almost feel like it's your ugly child, and you don't want to give it up because now you know that system. But once we went through the training for CareStack, it just became very evident it was much more efficient, much more intuitive, which in the long run is going to save us a lot more time on training. If someone can come in and be trained on the insurance nightmares sometimes within dental and within all medical, I assume, and have a software that supports them in that and doesn't impede them in their progress with that, then that was a no-brainer for us. And so that was the main reason why it was a little scary. And there's been some hiccups, but for the most part, it's been a transition that progressing in something that works much better was always the way to go.
If we take CareStack as an example, if you evaluate any software to bring or any solution to bring into your practice, what are the key elements you're looking at?
Functionality, being intuitive enough that it becomes easy. Most of the employees that we hire are employees that were born even around 2000. And so these are younger kids that grew up with iPads and technology learning that I didn't have as a young kid. But even with that being said, having software that is intuitive, and if I take a 20-year-old or 22-year-old and they can't figure a system out within 5 minutes, then I know something's wrong with it. It seems like it's just not good. Not right. It needs to be tweaked. Yeah. And so for me, the test of whether software works really well is just stick one of my front girls on it and see how quickly they can work around it. And I'd like to think that I'm into the tech stuff, but I wasn't born with that. And so there's still a learning curve that's a little larger for new software for me than it is, say, for someone who's 20 years old. And so, but being intuitive is important. Obviously, the functionality works. It needs to work. It needs to work well. It needs to be predictable. And then I love that a software that looks good is a big part of it, I believe.
Doesn't look like Windows 95.
It doesn't look like Windows 95, nor function like Windows 95. But
we still have those around, right?
We do. And that's the it's the details on things like that make a big difference. And some of the big players have changed the name of the game in this. You have companies like Tesla and Amazon and Apple that have changed the game and what the expectation is of what a real company looks like. And you can't have a mom and pop, software program that isn't instantly recognized as being subpar, because this is the technology that we use every day is becoming very intuitive and becoming just part of our daily lives. And when something's off, we know immediately that it's not quite. This is not where it needs to be.
A little bit on a personal side, I'm always curious. You have 3 offices. One is, do you have a desire to grow?
I do. When I started this path 10 years ago or so, and when I say we, I mean me and the team that was with me, we kind of went gangbusters for a while. I grew real fast, real quick, and there were some growing pains with that, both just in time, in the financials, as well as in just the stress that it takes to do that. But I learned what my lid was, or what my ability to how big a company I could lead by myself. And 3 seemed to be my max by myself. And so now I'm in the second phase where we're adding people to this mix to see what they've got. And as dentists come on and show their different qualities, then we can grow in a way that allows us to add more offices. But me, myself, 3 was kind of my max. Once it started interfering with, heavily interfering with my family life, which has always been one of the main reasons I became a dentist. I didn't necessarily want to work, 90 hours a week, because of the fact that family is first. And so once that, had I gone to 4 or 5, I think that would have bled into the time that I felt was important for my kids at their age. They were little kids then, and I didn't want to have them
miss the time
with their dad.
Yeah. How do you have any daily routines? How do you keep the energy? So I know you travel between offices. You have days that you work at certain offices.
Yeah.
Do you have specific time blocked in a schedule for yourself to work out or things like that?
Yeah. So, and I'm not, full disclosure, I'm not the best at this. I do my absolute best to stick to this routine. And it's inspired by a lot of books that I've read that all talk about how important your morning routine is. And so waking up for me early around 5 and having some exercise time, and then having some spiritual time, and then having some work time before I even get in the shower and before the world's even up has been a big deal for me. I find that's the most effective time for me to be ready for the day. If I win the morning, then I can win the day.
Right. Right. It's a big part of it.
Yeah. And so that's a big part of what we do. I feel like that allows me to do a task initially that gets me on the, once in motion, stay in motion boat, and without that, it's much harder. And like I said, I'm not perfect at it. There are times vacations are tough because it kind of throws you in this weird routine where you get out of your routine. But when I stick to my morning ritual, it changes the game for me. It allows me to be focused and come to work and navigate the ship in a way that I couldn't if I just woke up 5 minutes before and throw on some scrubs and ran to work. But I wish I could say I was perfect at it, but
I think that's the beauty of to me, when you say I'm perfect, that's the end result.
Yeah.
And then at that point, what do you do?
Die.
Right.
You should die.
Yeah. Exactly. Die perfect, So that's not fun.
Yeah. It's an up and down battle. I think when you know what you should do, that's when frustrations come, when you find that you are mortal and you have flaws that manifest themselves. But that's the struggle of life, and it's what presents opportunities, I feel. And so, like I said, up and down. But the up for me is, to answer your question, is the morning routine is where it all comes from. I can do all the things I know I have to do in order to stay good with myself, good with my physical part, good with my spiritual part, so that at night there's not this checklist of things I have to do. I can just go out and play volleyball with my daughter, or I can go play basketball with my son, or we can go on a date night with my wife because I'm not feeling like I'm lacking on those things that I really should have done at 5 a.m.
Can you describe your morning routine?
Sure. I'm a big runner, so I like to, 4 days a week I'll go out and run for 4 miles, and then I do that Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday I do like a circuit training type thing. It's like
Legs day.
Yeah. No, I do. Usually, I'll do like Insanity as like a exercise routine I do that takes about 40 minutes during the morning, and then while I am sweating and all that stuff, then I'll go and spend some spiritual time reading some spiritual materials, and then for about a half an hour, and then for another half an hour, then I'll do. Then for another half an hour, I'll do my. Sorry. You're going to have to edit that part.
It's okay.
And then for the last...
By the way, do you need water?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
And then the last half an hour will be work stuff, looking at the stuff that's happening at work, what needs to be worked on. If there's a training coming up that I'm doing, then I'll spend a half an hour on that. But all in all, it's about 2 hours of a daily routine.
Wow. So what time do you get up?
5.
5?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, 5 o'clock. And...
the lights just
they're on a sensor, so the plant is hiding the sensor, so it thinks that it's asleep. But
yeah, that's awesome.
it's kind of nicer in here when it's.
At least we have the screen.
Yeah, I was gonna say, just turn this on.
Yeah, that's great.
But like I said, the routine's not. It's not something that I can say I've been 100% good at, but I try my best, and when I do it, it definitely makes a huge difference.
Mm-hmm. You probably feel the days when you don't follow the routine, right?
I do. There's just a nagging feeling of like you're not doing what you're capable of doing.
Mm-hmm.
And whether that's true or not, I'm not really sure, but I know that it's there.
Right.
And so it makes a big difference when I do it.
That's one of the things that, I always think about a lot is, are you born with desire and ambition, or it comes with time? And then do you ever lose it?
Well, I think that, I'm not a philosopher, but I think that desire is probably a mixed bag of things. I think you have to have like great opposition in your life in order to fuel the need to improve. There's obviously exceptions in all categories, but it seems like in everyone that has great achievements, there is this baseline story of trials, of hardships, of things that they've had to deal with that have fueled that desire. And, if you're born in a life with no trials, you're probably going to die in a life where you didn't become anyone substantial. And I'm not saying that people who have a lot of money or who have everything handed to them can't become substantial. I just think that motivation has to come from somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And my life's been blessed in many different ways. There have been trials that have forced me to look at what I'm doing and understand better why those trials were there. And I think that's kind of what's made me who I am. And as the business goes well, it's very easy to be like, I'm good. I'm making a good living. I spend as much time with my family as I want. I've got 2 houses in different places. I've got a vacation home in Hawaii. Like, my life's good. I can just sit back and let life roll. But that's been the tricky part for me, is to realize, no, I can't do that. When there's excess money in the account, I need to pull it out. So it always has the feeling of like, no, you're just right on the edge of falling off a cliff. Because that edge is where I feel like all the inspiration comes from. You give yourself the opportunity to feel like it's just about to all fall apart, and that's when genius comes out. And so that's one of the main benefits, I think, of COVID. Is this? It's just been a life-changing opportunity for us to realize, wait, what needs to change now so that we're good for the future, versus if we just keep doing what we're doing now, we're good now, but we might not be good for the future.
Right. Right. That's exactly. Can you share any of those, at least like one failure that? Oh,
one failure. I can share many failures, actually. Yeah. I think for me, on the business side of it, the biggest failures are with team members. The things you did that caused problems, or the things you didn't do that caused problems. I had a dentist early on that was a really good friend of mine, great dentist, who I lost him because of things I didn't say. I avoided the conflict. And, that was hard for me. He was the first dentist that was with me long term. And I didn't want to lose a friend, and I didn't want to challenge him in a way that would make him grow. And so when he left, it was rough. It was a rough time. I felt like it was a departure from me, not a departure from the business. And so it made me have to rethink my entire philosophy of what I was doing and how I would handle future dentists coming on, and what I should do. And so that failure was a big one, but it kind of drove the next 3 years of great planning and great execution for my team on how to keep dentists happy and how to keep them here.
Mm-hmm. Can we use that example, just out of curiosity? When that happened, what did you do? Like, did you call your wife and you talk through this, or you grab a book, or what book? Because, I think a lot of times, I don't remember the exact saying is, but never let a great obstacle go wasted or something like that, mm-hmm. right? So like, I'm fascinated by what are those first 3 steps you do when that happens. It's all intuitive. You don't say like, well, when this fails, I'm going to pull this book, right? Or take that instruction, right? So, but there's probably some kind of pattern that you've built that gets you back on track. And that's.
Yeah, for me, it's don't get upset with being upset. There was a time frame, and my wife and I have this time frame where when something happens that bad, we have a couple days of a pity party that we're allowed to just be pissed, and but that can't go on. That's not productive. It doesn't do us any good. It just doesn't allow the forgiveness process to take effect. And so I took a couple of days just to be mad at him and his wife and the process that had happened. And then afterwards, I turned to people that were smarter than me. And this sounds like an interesting source, but there was an autobiography written by Bob Iger, or about Bob Iger, the former Disney CEO, that had a lot of inspirational things about his life that I felt, for someone who can lead a company that has, hundreds of thousands of employees and billions of dollars of assets and acquisitions, I feel like he had some good experience. And so I started copying from things he did in his life. My morning routine started after I read that book, and I think that's been a game changer for me. So pity party, turn to those that are smarter, both in books or conference or things like that. And then the last thing is just don't repeat the mistakes. Like in my case, I had to make sure that those mistakes weren't repeated, and because of it, we were able to move forward.
Mm-hmm. So. This is a more selfish question. I'm super curious. How much do you share with your wife?
About the business, or about, I used to share everything with her. But just learning the complementary roles that my wife and I share. She has a very different personality than me. She worries a lot. She's very data seeking, whereas I'm more general idea, and I don't really stress about much. And so I don't share much with her about the business because she likes to deep dive into why or what we're doing or how we're doing it, and that just wasn't great for our marriage. It just once our discussions were much more about business than they were about our kids or about us, then it just wasn't a healthy environment. So she's great at giving me freedom to go to work and to have accomplishments and make errors and hopefully learn from those errors and move forward. But my sharing with her about the ups and downs of work through the years, I've learned aren't as productive as us talking about our children or our hopes and dreams or what is it that's going to make us strong. If I'm strong at home, then I can be strong here. And it was weakening us to talk so much about work at home, and so that just wasn't productive.
Okay, that's one of my biggest faults. Probably is I love
work
my
talk
work.
at home?
I'm so excited about my work, and I bring it home. And, I recently got married, and it's just, I'm trying to get to the point where I try to flip the coin because I love dreaming, right? So if I come home and I talk about work, and my wife she's really awesome at this. She's like, well, let's talk about what we're going to do in 12 months. Yeah. That changes my perspective right away. It's like, I'm more excited about that. Like, I love my work, but to think about where are we going to go? And we have this thing now is we're thinking just to be on the road. Yeah. And my work allows me to do remote work and maybe live in different countries for like 6 months here, 6 months there. Sounds amazing. And we're expecting a kid. And it's like, how are we going to do that? And you have two camps of people that say, this is the dumbest thing you will ever do. Don't do that. And then you have a camp of people that say, you absolutely have to do this if you have the option to do that. And so this is where she takes me. Instead of talking about work, she'd be like, oh, let's talk about this. Like, how are we going to do that? Yeah. Because I would love to do that. And these are the things that I'm trying to learn myself now, too.
I feel like there's just such a beautiful dance between a husband and wife and the work variable. When you have the perspective to step back and realize that life is really good at distracting you from what's really important. The things that we work on day in and day out are fun. They're definitely compelling. They definitely allow us to feel like we have a place in this world to contribute. But I've always believed and will always continue to believe that the biggest contribution that we can give to this world comes from the relationship that her and I share and the relationship that we endear into our children. My father was a really wise man. He's not dead. Is a wise man.
Thank God.
Always said to me that their greatest gift as parents to me as their son was to show me what a good relationship looked like. And the way my father treated my mother was the best example I could have. And in a world where, not to get like philosophical or anything, but like we live in a world where they're trying to blur truth. They're saying, there's just so many different people saying there's no such thing as truth. There's no such thing as good and evil. There's no such thing as right and wrong, which I disagree with. I think that the biggest truth you can have is to have two people who are united together that can build a family that is foundational for this world to continue, not just on a logical standpoint. If you don't have a husband and wife that have kids, then the world is going to end. But also in terms of allowing, values to still be taught in families that allow good to continue. And so I feel like I'm going on a tangent. I'm sorry. I'll stop real quick.
This is awesome. This is my favorite part.
I feel like between a husband and wife, that's the beauty of it. Is if you have the opportunity to do something that you and her together want to do, and feel like it can grow your relationship by experiencing different parts of the world, and more so by experiencing your spouse in a different part of the world, then why wouldn't you? I just think that we get so caught up in our bubble that we don't understand what's happening elsewhere. And you put me in a city in China, it's not that I'd be a different person, but based on my experiences, I would learn and evolve and be a different person because of those experiences, and even so much more with your spouse to be able to do that. That sounds amazing. My job's not remote, so I can't do that for good or for bad. But imagine the things you could talk about if you live in Rome for a year, or if you live in Greece for a year, or you live in Canada for a year. Like, imagine the things as a husband and wife, how you would grow as a couple, having to experience different hardships and different cultures within this world. It would be really cool.
Yeah, and the foundation you give to the kid.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I probably will do a side project at some point, like a relationship advice from my friends in dentistry.
Gotcha.
It's so
I don't
amazing.
know if dentistry is the best place. So I guess we are all about relationships with patients, but
Yeah. One of my really good friend in Dallas, Weatherford, you probably heard of him, Beacon Dentistry, Dr. Tom Novak.
yeah.
I love visiting him. I'm going to visit him probably tomorrow night or Wednesday morning. We had just a chat and we were talking. And then I told him that, my wife and I are expecting a kid. And he was sitting there, literally within a minute, he started crying.
That's awesome.
And then the things that he told me, I will remember forever. And it's just so amazing. Like, I'm so grateful. Imagine, and that's probably your mentality too, like the work should be fun. And that what makes fun for me, this work, is like all the software is great, but like having this is the best. And then I just remember we were talking, and I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this. He said, I love my kids. They all know that. They're the best thing that can happen, that happened to me in this life.
Yeah.
But what they all know is I love my wife more than I love them.
Yeah.
And now, I didn't. It didn't make sense to me in the beginning. I started asking. He's like, it's so clear to my kids that there's nothing comes close to the way I love my wife.
Yeah.
And the kids are the kids. And then I was driving. I mean, I live in Austin now, and so it's like 2.5-hour drive. And then I called my wife. I'm like, can you imagine what I just learned? And she's like, well, it doesn't make sense. And then we talked through this. And then it's like, it puts us two together in the importance level more than the kids.
Yeah.
And there's something beautiful about it. And so I'm so grateful to all these, things that I learn about.
Yeah. And I would second what he said on that. The fact of the matter is you have your kids for a very short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're your priority and they're your focus and your love is always on them more than anything else, more often than not, you see these relationships that will hit some really hard times when the kids leave, because you'll be in this home with this person that you've made a second-rate citizen, and now everyone's gone. You're like, oh crap! Now I guess I have to make you my number one because there's no one else here. And we were very adamant from the get-go. We left our youngest child when he was 2.5 months old for a week to go on a cruise, just her and I, because we felt it was important that we always kept that going. And there's some criticism that can go with that, but I feel like no child, lost their will to live because their parents went on a date for a week. I feel like it's important for them to know that their priority is different than the priority with their spouse. And because when it comes down to it, she's gonna be the one. And
Right.
Like any relationship, your kids are interesting because you don't choose them, you have them, and because you have them, there's this sense of like they're part of me. And so it's not that you don't have to work for that love. It's just because they're part of you, it's naturally easier to do so, to love them. But your spouse isn't part of you. She's not from your genes. You chose her. But because you chose her, you don't have that inherent sense of, oh, she's part of me. Which means you have to work for it. You have to work for it more than you do your kids, even though sometimes, and I love my kids to death 95% of the time. And then 5% of the time I want to kill them, but law says I shouldn't kill people, so I won't do that. But because my wife's not from me, working for that love is different. It requires a more concerted effort to make sure that, hey, when we were dating, this is what I did, and this is how I felt about her. And when you're out of dating, you have to be more concerted and make more of an effort to say, hey, this is what I do now, so that I continue to love her, and vice versa. And so it's different. The kids are amazing, but I wholeheartedly agree with what was said in regards to her being your first priority, because she definitely is. And it's a different type of love, of course. But
So you agree that we should start a separate podcast on that?
Absolutely. That'd be great.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It'd be amazing.
Yeah, I love it. I really appreciate our friendship. I really appreciate that I can reach out to you anytime. You always respond. There's never been a time that I would text you and you just don't respond. And then I think last time we were trying to get together, you got COVID.
Yeah,
think
I
it was
did.
like April or March.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I love you, Tiger. I think
Yeah.
you're amazing. I think what
Thank
you're
you.
doing is amazing. And, you know, I'm here to support you in any way that I can. Like there's a difference in you than there is in most people. And it's fun to be a part of that. It's fun to share in some of that. And I don't know what hardships or trials you've had in your life that caused you to have the drive you have, but I'm grateful for those.
Just a few.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for those, and I'm grateful for the ones that you'll have in the future that will drive you becoming the person that I know you can become. And it's fun to be a witness, a part of that journey. Honestly, it's, you know, it's like reading a book about someone you care about, and anything you do, I'm always here for you.
Thank you. It means a lot.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
You bet.